Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin' Robbie Billups, and it's time for the weekly comic book review. That's right everybody, thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin' Robbie Billups. This is the weekly comic book review. It's the show I read a lot of comic books, and I let you know what I thought about them, and we always start with the pick of the week. But first, let me remind you that PCP can save you money at Dynamic Forces. That's right, just visit dynamicforces.com, enter Robbie at your cart, and save 10%. And also, the shipment from Diamond was delayed at my shop yet again, so I had to go digital and read some PDFs, but don't worry, I'll throw some images up there for the books I'm talking about. But let's get right into it with the pick of the week. This week's pick of the week, Human Remains, #1. This is from Vault Comics. I loved this book. It's written by Peter Milligan, who is a legendary veteran in this industry, and I just loved the book. The basic premise is this. There's some kind of entity that shows up on Earth, and whenever emotions become obvious or outward in humanity, whether it's love, hate, sadness, happiness, whatever, these beings feed off of it. They can sense it, and then they come and they just devour these humans. They just cut them all up and stuff, right? So now humanity has to live these emotionless lives. I really liked the book. I thought the artwork was absolutely amazing. It's the same artist from I Walk with Monsters. I think that the way that the story was executed with the line work and the coloring was really appropriate for the tone of the story. Pete Milligan has given us some really crazy ideas in comics throughout the years. He continues to do so with Human Remains. It's got a nice heart within the story and a great explanation on the context of the situation and the concept of the book. And the way it is handled makes a pretty solid first issue. Really cool. Really liked it. Nice and tight. Let's get right along. Let's talk about DC. DC Comics, I actually have these in hand because we get our DC books a little bit, from a different distributor. Deathstroke Inc. #1. This is a book that I wasn't really looking forward to, but I rather enjoyed it. It's written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Howard Porter. The artwork was super solid, and the basic concept is this. Deathstroke has decided to go a little bit legit yet again, but this time he kind of wants to make it stick, and he decides he's going to work for this organization called Trust. And then he's got Black Canary, who's also joined this organization, Trust. This was built up to in one of the Urban Legends Batman one-shot, backup stories or something. But I really liked it. It's got a new use for that newer version of Toyman. Deathstroke's kind of got this group come together, but there's something mysterious about this Trust organization, and what's going to be that dynamic between Black Canary and Deathstroke. Slade and Dinah, they're not really the best of friends. So I really like the book, and it's a lot of promise, and it does one of those things at the end of it that a lot of good #1s will do, where it'll be like, coming soon in the pages, and it just gives you these brief glimpses of stuff that's coming. That really got me excited. So Deathstroke Inc. #1, I actually really liked. Detective Comics 1043. This one was alright. It's a Fear State tie-in. This is going to focus mostly on the mayor. So this is what the mayor's up to, right? But Mariko Tamaki continues to be able to thread her own story. She's been focusing on the mayor. She's been focusing on other elements. Some of those elements creep back up in here as well. Plus, you got amazing artwork by Dan Mora and Jordi Belair. The line work, the atmosphere, the boisterousness of it, the explosiveness of it is totally what a superhero Batman DC comic deserves. It was awesome. There were moments in here that made me feel like old school Spawn type layouts and composition, very dynamic, filled with energy, crackling, jumping, leaping, even off the page. So Detective Comics 1043, it was solid, not super integral or necessary for your Fear State, but it's doing its own thing. The one thing, though, sometimes about these tie-ins to events is like, damn, Batman's everywhere, right? But anyway, I liked it. It has a backup story leading into Task Force Z. That was pretty cool as well. Robin is here with issue #6. Loved this issue. Thought this was super strong, super cool. So Robin has been on this tournament, or he's been on this island where there's going to be a tournament, right? There's other assassins and sidekicks and heroes there. There's Ravager. There's Connor Hawk, for instance. So it's basically Mortal Kombat, but with Damian and a crew kind of like Damian. But there's, Damian's there for information. And what I love about this book is, first of all, we're getting into the tournament and no time is wasted. We spent some time kind of building up into it, but now that the fighting is officially starting in issue number 6, it starts and it doesn't stop. Like, there's a lot more than I thought would happen in this issue. But what's really been exciting me over these last few issues is the character work being done on Damian Wayne by Joshua Williamson. I think it's been absolutely phenomenal, and some of the best, most nuanced work done with that character, especially since the Tom King run and what happened there with the death of Alfred and everything. I like that we're exploring that, getting into it, digging into that character. So Robin number 6, pretty freaking solid. Legends of the Dark Knight, issue number 5. Issue number 5. This was an okay issue. It's a team up between Batman and Martian Manhunter. It's written by Brandon Thomas. It's all right, but it's not as good as the previous issues. It's a nice one and done, self-contained story. It's got a classic villain, a Calendar Man, some really exciting Calendar Man stuff in comics this week. We'll get to that a touch later, but this one is just kind of all right. It's skippable unless you're just dying for some classic feeling Batman stories. And when I say classic feeling, I mean like from like 10, 15 years ago. Legends of the Dark Knight number 5. I thought it was pretty decent. Then we got Batman the Reptilian, issue number 4. Loved this issue. So this was a book that I wasn't quite sold on at first, but each issue I feel has compelled me further, right? And now we've hit a peak where I was completely engrossed and enamored and enchanted by every single word on every single panel and page. Like, there's some crazy concepts in this story. So Garth Ennis is pinning this story that's about a new beastly monster unleashed on Gotham. And it's like tearing through Gotham's, rogues gallery, right? It's a DC Black Label book. It's out of the main continuity. And it's somehow related to Killer Croc. And the revelation and explanation of that and the way the news is broken is one of my favorite bits in comics in a long time. There's some really nice humorous moments here, but also moments of true just terror. Like, absolutely, right? Liam Sharp's artwork, I feel, is a bit dark and unclear at times, but in here, it really starts selling. You understand that what he's doing is to provoke this very foreboding atmosphere, right? This tone. And then it erupts in certain moments. I do think it could be a bit brighter. Not that the book should be bright, but that the artwork's just a bit too unclear in its murky darkiness. But I loved this issue. I thought it was really, really freaking cool. Then we got Batman vs. Bigby, A Wolf in Gotham, number 1 from DC Black Label. This is out of continuity as well. This is by Bill Willingham. This is the return to Fables. That's right. Bigby, of course, is a character from the Vertigo series Fables, which is making its return next year. So kind of as a way to get us back into that is this nice little crossover where there are these murders happening in Gotham. And it's a Gotham that's familiar yet not really what we're used to. In fact, all the Robins are Robins still and things like that. It's nice little interesting things there. But there's the series of murders going on that look like they're done by some kind of big large animal. Bigby happens to show up, who also happens to turn into a wolf. Batman and him meet, and you can kind of figure out how this first issue is going to go. Artwork for me just didn't really work. I didn't like it at all. And the story just kind of, I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in this one because I do like Fables, and I'm excited to return to that world, but that one just didn't do it for me. Then we got Batman Superman, number 22. I thought this book was done. I thought it was done. This is the final issue. I thought the last one was the final issue. Then there was the annual. So I thought that was it. Now there's this. I'm going to tell you what, though. This is a nice self-contained story. That's one of the best Calendar Man stories I've ever read. And it's one of the best Mixture Mixus Pitalik stories I've ever read. I loved this book. Gene Luen Yang, kind of a swan song for Batman Superman. Paul Peltier doing the artwork. I liked it. It's playing with the format. It's getting a little bit meta. Basically, Calendar Man dies in A-Day, and so Mixie shows up and gives him a power upgrade, and it's really interesting what happens. I don't want to spoil it, but if you like really meta, interesting things, this felt like a Grant Morrison idea, kind of just thrown together and slapped out there. I really liked this issue. It blew me away. This is the reason why I love comic books. Shit like Batman, Superman, number 22. Then we got Superman, Son of Kal-El, issue number 3. I'm just not digging it. Like, I love the character of Jonathan Kent, especially from the Super Sons days, or the Superman run by Peter Tomasi. That stuff was awesome. Bendis came in, kind of threw a wrench into all of that. Now, Jonathan Kent's, like, aged up. He's like a teenager or something. So, you know, Clark's off into space. John's got to take over. This just doesn't work for me. So there's some clunky moments here. So this issue has the goodbye that Jonathan says to his dad as he's leaving for space, maybe to never return. And it feels so weird and clunky because there's this like private event that like Jonathan's new friend gets invited. It's so weird and awkward, and it just feels out of context and character for Clark Kent to do that. I don't know. That's just nitpicking. Aside from that, it's a bit message first on Tom Taylor's part, and I feel like, you know, I don't know, that doesn't really necessarily bother me as much as I feel like it's twisting the character of Jonathan Kent. The Jonathan Kent that we saw in things like Deceased, Tom Taylor nailed that. I was really excited to see more of that kind of a dynamic with this character, but I'm just getting something a bit not what I was expecting. So Superman Son of Kal-El number 3, I'm teetering on the edge of that one. Action Comics 1038 though, 35, my bad. Loved this issue, thought it was great. So this is the wrap up of this whole story where he finds out about these Kryptonian refugees, possibly, these people that are being tortured and kept by Mongols, so he wants to go out and help. He can't get the Justice League to back him up. There's a lot of political things going on there, and I mean that in like the real true sense of the word. But like, I really like this one. So it's got, if Superman Son of Kal-El has an awkward goodbye to his son, this one has very appropriate goodbye to Lois. I really like this. I thought it hit all of the emotional beats perfectly. The artwork felt epic, it felt big, and I could not be more excited to see Superman off in space trying to save the slaves of Warworld and fighting Mongol, and it feels like it could be an epic, cool sci-fi Superman story. Meanwhile, on Earth, we get that. If you like that book, I'm happy. Superman 78, issue number 2. This one was a step down from the first issue, but it was still pretty solid. There's some choices that are made about like where Luthor winds up that I thought was just kind of weird and like didn't really work for me. Just kind of like playing Luthor up for just a joke at first and then building up a threat. Anyway, what this is a continuation of the Richard Donner Superman story with Christopher Reeve, and it's as if it continued on. Brainiac shows up. It's got all the pieces, the voices, the colors, the perspectives, the way the characters act, everything about it feels of that moment in time, of those movies, and it's really nice. This one just didn't quite capture me like the first one. It was the Luthor bit. It was the Luthor bit. There's a weird Luthor bit in there. So, Justice League number 68 here. Let's talk about what I loved about this book. The backup story by Ram V. Sumit Kumar. Absolutely loved it. And it's built up these 10-page Justice League backup stories. They have built up to a moment, and the moment is here, and it was well worth it. Perfectly timed, well-paced. I'm loving what Ram V is doing in Justice League Dark. Obviously, that's coming to an end in just a couple months, but you see why, what the finale is going to be about, and that, pretty freaking awesome. Oh, the Bendis story. The Bendis story sucked. Enough said. Wonder Woman, Black and Gold, issue number 4? Yes, issue number 4 of Black and Gold. It's got a really good story in here that I liked with artwork by Nicola Scott, written by Andrew Constant. Thought that was really good. There's a Paul Azazita story that I liked. There's a story by Sina Grace and Leonardo Romero that the artwork is amazing, and it throws back to those mod days, the Denny O'Neil stuff, which never read, but I've been wanting to pick up that omnibus. And then the rest of the stories just didn't do too much for me. Colleen Doran is on one of them. Artwork was great, but the story didn't do too much. This is really just for the most hardcore Wonder Woman fans, to be honest. There's like 1 or 2 good stories in each one, and then the rest of them are kind of skippable. So if you're a super hardcore Diana fan, you definitely want to check that out. Then we got Sandman Universe, Lock and Key, Hell and Gone, issue number 2. I really like this. So this is the conclusion of this series by Joe Hill, by Gabriel Rodriguez, the team from Lock and Key. So it fits more in with the Lock and Key world, especially some of the more recent one-shots or miniseries that they've been doing, delving back into the family history of the Locke family, right? Family history of the Locke family. Sure, let's just go that way. But the way it's tied into the Sandman, and in particular how it's tied into a missing space of time in between issues 1 and the rest of Sandman, I really like. It sets up a lot of cool stuff that we didn't necessarily need set up, but to kind of use a project like this to to build up explanations for certain character whereabouts in the pages of Sandman and certain things to happen and starting certain domino effects and showing that was pretty neat. So it feels a bit prequel-y, while also being a lock and key story, and it's got that whimsical fantasy flair that's appropriate for both Sandman and Lock and Key. Both of these properties meshed very well together. Let's jump over to Marvel and to my digital reading. And from Marvel, the first one I want to talk about is Inferno. Of course, this is the big finale of Hickman's vision of the X-Men, or at least the finale of Act 1 of his plan. We'll never get the rest, but you know, they promise us that we're still going to see Hickman's plan realized just by different creators, right? But come on, y'all. You know, as soon as Hickman is out of the kitchen, them cooks are going to start changing the recipes. That being said, I really liked issue 1 of Inferno. It finally gets to some pieces we've been waiting for. Where's Moira? What about the Destiny situation? What about Nimrod being realized and coming online? What about Orcus? Where's all this stuff? And it all just right to it. It's like all the filler is like it never happened. We just get right back into it. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I would have liked it a lot better if it was a year ago and it was like, you know, ready to continue Hickman's vision and not, obviously, the state that we're in right now. That being said, Inferno #1 was really cool. So if you liked Hoxpox, if you liked what Hickman was planning and what he was doing, this may be bittersweet when all is said and done, but it does finally get to the bits that we've been waiting for, and it takes its time still getting there. They're there. It's an extra-sized issue. I really liked it. I really liked it. And first data page of an X book that I've read in over a year. So, because I cared. I really did. Also, Amazing Fantasy #3 from Kari Andrews. I really liked this one. I thought it was cool. Basically, Black Widow, Captain America, and Spider-Man from different eras of their existence have been plucked out into this fantasy world. Uncle Ben's there. They're all part of a different kingdom. There's this, like, fantasy war going on, and they're all tied up with a different tribe, and it kind of explodes in this issue, and I liked it. It also has a lot of tragedy in it, too. Some tough moments that I thought were really well handled by Kari Andrews, including also the artwork. The artwork was amazing. I thought it was super cool. Amazing Spider-Man 74. It's over. It's over. I almost made this my pick of the week just because it's over, but I can't do that to you because, come on, this book wasn't very good, let me tell you. Issue 74 is $10. It's super extra size. It's got backup stories. It's got backup stories. One of them kind of ties into the Spider-Man Beyond stuff happening in the next issue, which is $6. It's also just got some filler in the end. But it does have a big, giant story that is the finale of the Kindred Saga. All the revelations have already been revealed. They just kind of iron it out and make a little bit more sense here. And they do reveal some Mephisto stuff, but it's not going to be what people are expecting. So basically, this was a long, drawn-out run on Spider-Man just so that Nick Spencer could retcon some stuff that maybe him and a lot of other fans, including me, didn't like, but that's a long-ass backwards way to do a retcon. I'm not satisfied with the final product. I'm curious to know what you guys thought. Those who have stuck it through like me of Spencer Spider-Man, what'd you think of that finale? What'd you think about it? I didn't like it. Darkhold Alpha #1. This is a weirdly placed book because it's a Scarlet Witch-centric book, and it even like takes place before Trial of Magneto. We're like, yeah, of course, right? But it takes place after some recent Fantastic Four issues, so whatever. So what happens is that Dr. Doom finds the Darkhold, and that starts bringing Chthon back to Rising. Scarlet Witch is freaked out. She goes to ask Doom for help. Doom goes and tries to handle it on his own. Meanwhile, Scarlet Witch tries to throw together a team to fight Chthon and the rising chaotic forces, right? And it's like, it's all the people that have one-shots, like Spider-Man, Blade, Iron Man. It's an interesting team. It has a twist at the end that was kind of compelling, but these events that Marvel does, that they have like bookended Alpha and Omega one-shots and a bunch of one-shots in the middle, they usually kind of get fluffed out and don't really work as a nice cohesive unit for me. So I thought it was just okay. It had some cool concepts and ideas, but we'll see how this unfolds. Speaking of those crazy events, how about Extreme Carnage Omega? Finally get to the end of this story. This is another one of those bookended series of one-shots. That's an event or whatever. So Extreme Carnage Omega wraps the story up pretty well. It does it rather quickly. That was what I was saying about those one-shots. They had a one-shot for each one of the symbiotes that were involved in this whole thing, and I feel like it unevened the pace of the story. This could have just simply been a 4 to 5 issue series, and I think everything would fit in and flowed a lot better, even if it was up to 6, right? So, that being said, it's kind of a satisfying conclusion for the most part. It felt a little jumbled, a little bit muddy, like they didn't want to make too much of a commitment to one way or another, and it kind of just results in more of the same. I don't know. I guess I like the end result of it. It's decent enough. Darkhawk number 2. Really liked it. Kyle Higgins, brand new Darkhawk. I was blown away by the first issue. It was introducing a new character. He's his kid. He's like a basketball star. He's about to make it big. Then he finds out he's got this degenerative disease and his family's down on money and things just go crazy and he's just really down about his future. And then he finds the Darkhawk, you know, gem, crystal stone or whatever, right? And he becomes the new Darkhawk and he gets his powers and he does some crazy stuff. What they do in issue 2 continues the momentum of that story. It's got some nice action in it. It's got great character work. It really does. And it's got some moments that are very Marvel origin mythologically significant, if that makes sense. That being said, I really liked Darkhawk number 2. So that's cool. Thor number 20 is here. This Thor issue was a little bit inconsistent. I liked it better than the last 2. But it felt a little bit like it was, you know how you can be weighed down by like your own like approach to the book? Maybe there wasn't enough weight to it, and so there's for the most part it's a conversation between a family, a brother and a sister, a mother and a father. There's some really nice touching moments, some really good moments, some really hard-hitting moments, and then some moments that are just awkwardly placed, like of humor and things like this that don't really quite work. There is a nice hook to get you to the end. There's some really great moments with Angela where she's like, yo, Thor, if you don't straighten up, I'm coming at you. And there were some cool moments in it, and I liked it, and I liked where we're getting at it, but it was just uneven. There was something tonally off about it from scene to scene, but an improvement on a book that I have been disappointed in for the last couple of issues. Winter Guard number 2. I was really surprised that I liked issue number 1. I'm even more surprised that I liked issue number 2. The Winter Guard is like Russia's Avengers, and Red Guardian and Yelena Belova as the White Widow, they're kind of involved, and the Winter Guard's after them, but they may have a traitor in their midst. And what's it really about? I don't really know. Like, it's just big, dumb, fun superhero stuff, and I really like the ending. Teased me into wanting to come back. So it's nothing that's going to blow you away, but I had fun with the book. I thought it was good. Wolverine number 20. Alright, I'm still not dropping Wolverine. I still like this book. I think it's solid. Though this one didn't have everything I wanted. So it's finally the confrontation between Solem and Wolverine, right? And it's anticlimactic a little bit, I would say. So that was kind of disappointing. And the artwork felt a bit rushed and sloppy, especially for Adam Kubert, just not quite as refined. You know, and I know that his artwork is edgy, but not edgy, but you know, gritty and whatever. It's got this flair to it, but it was okay. It was decent enough, I guess. You know, I talked myself out of it. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it. Okay, from Image Comics, we got Crossover number 8, the return of Crossover, starting arc number 2. Starts out in a really off-putting way, where it's almost like Donny Cates is telling you, oh, the story shouldn't have gone that way. It's so weird, right? But then they kind of reveal what's happening, and I liked it. I like the way that they're setting up for the next arc, how this story is going to continue. So Crossover is a world in which the skies opened up one day and everybody from every comic book just poured into the real world, right? In the last issue, we found out something major about the main character. We deal with those ramifications here. So it's got those character moments, but it's also got this weird, really weird, quirky meta thing that it's doing in the beginning that is very off-putting. It throws you off at first, but then once you get back into the back half of the issue, it irons itself out, and I rather enjoyed the issue overall. Department of Truth number 13. Would it surprise you if I told you that this was an exposition-heavy issue of Department of Truth? Me neither. However, I loved it. Why? The artwork by Martin Simmons is amazing. The exposition, the stuff that's being told, interesting stuff to me about the world of magic and thought forms and conspiracy theories and belief and the public consciousness and the collective unconscious and all these kind of things and what's really going on between the Department of Truth and the Black Hat. And some major revelations have been occurring over the last couple of issues. This one we get a big thrust about where this story is going, and I'm super down for it. I loved it. It deals with so many wild, random things, and to be able to tie it all together like this and spin it into a new direction and keep it thrilling and exciting in a way that X-Files couldn't sustain for long. We'll see how long Department of Truth can sustain it, but I really liked it. Echolands #2, magnificent. Magnificent. This book is gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's the one that's like horizontal. It opens up this way. It sucked reading it digitally, I'll be honest with you, but I made it through it. I cannot wait to get a physical copy of this. The book is gorgeous. J.H. Williams, one of the best artists that has ever lived in the comic book industry. Todd Klein, Dave Stewart, like the best colorist, the best letterer, you know, the OGs. And the story's pretty decent. You're getting a little bit more into the story. It's not quite, it's not the story that's appealing about this, though they do get more into it, more about the world, more about this character, but there's still a lot that is unclear. But the way that it's laid out, the way it's rendered, the coloring, the lettering, everything about this book is magnificent. It is a masterpiece. It's just a masterpiece. If it had a more compelling story and narrative and character-driven focus, I think it could really be one of the best books I've ever read. That being said, story's okay, not quite super engaging, but everything else about the book is captivating as all hell. Spawn 322. Spawn's losing his shit. This is what's going on. So in Pages of Spawn, he's like torturing people. He's like killing kids. He's like doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Read King Spawn #2 from last week if you don't think I'm, you know, what's going on. In this one, he's torturing this poor vampire in like a myriad of like terrible ways, because this dude, you know, it's like it's really kind of it's a very focused book. It's just on this one thing. It's a torture scene. It's Al torturing this vampire who's been keeping this woman locked up for 4 years and feeding off her and stuff, right? So I really like this issue of Spawn. I thought it was good. The artwork is great. The intensity to which they're raising the stakes here, and also just raising the stakes of being a victim of Spawn himself. Awesome. Also, I read it digitally, but still, cardstock cover, $2.99. So there you go. Undiscovered Country #16. This issue bogged me down just a little bit. So they're in the world of creativity, of imagination, and so they've been dealing with like American mythology, American story, and now American music. And the way that they tie these archetypes and these characters together in a very Narnia-esque type way, Wizard of Oz, they got to travel the circle, they go to these different lands. That's really interesting and really cool concepts, but it does get kind of weighted down a little bit. It is verbose, okay? But like a book like Department of Truth is probably more wordy than Undiscovered Country, but there's something different and more captivating about that book. Maybe it's the subject matter, but I love the subject matter of Undiscovered Country. But it's a good way to look and see how a verbose book can not affect the pace of a book, and how it can drag the pace of a book down. That's what's happening to me with Undiscovered Country. From Boom Studios, we have BRZRKR #5, Keanu Reeves, Matt Kent. This starts the second story arc, and I liked it. So the first one was really focused on the origins of this immortal, right? BRZRKR is about this, he's Keanu Reeves, and he's immortal, but he's this badass, and he gets cut up, and he just comes right back to life. So in the first one, they got delved into his early origins. It was talking about his family, like as a kid, right? And I feel like we're going to see, like, the child, the man, the old man. I think we're going to get that kind of a structure in these 3 story arcs, because right now we're hitting the idea of him becoming a lover, him leaving his parents' place, kind of. There's something that's connected to why it's not a good idea for him to have his own family, or for him to fall in love with someone and to have a life with that person, aside from just the obvious immortality thing, that really works for me. The book is violent, but it's not as brutally violent. You know, it is, actually. It's pretty brutally violent. It's just doesn't, it's not like blood on every page, but it's a different type of brutality that's in this one. It was a little unnerving to read at times, but I really liked it. I like that they're doing this really crazy book that could just be straight up action focused, but actually doing something about the character and exploring loneliness and isolation and pain and the human condition. I really, really like it. Something is Killing the Children, issue number 20, with the end of this whole Me and My Monsters story arc. So the origin of Erica Slaughter. Last we saw her, she was in this room. She's confronting her monster. She's either going to get killed by it or she's going to tame it, and she gets to become one of the House of Slaughter. We obviously know that she succeeds, and so we already saw that in the last issue. This is the after effect. You get to see how her trials are affecting the people around her, and then the way it's just paced and timed up is absolutely great. A lot more world building about the House of Slaughter, what the different masks mean, what the different factions do. Really interesting stuff here that I really, really dug. So Something is Killing the Children maintains being one of the best books out there on shelves. From Dynamite, we have Dejah Thoris versus John Carter of Mars, issue number 3. Really like this issue. I've just jumped back into this series. I haven't read a Dynamite Warlord of Mars comic since like when they first started doing it, and they had all those like Joe Jusko covers and stuff. But I have been a bit lost with certain things that they're referencing, though having read the books, especially as a kid, I kind of recall a little bit about what they're talking about. But now, 3 issues in, I'm really getting into it. I'm digging it. So Dejah Thoris is like in charge, and John Carter's there. She gets captured by this bad guy. There are these beings that are like celestials there. They got this ultimate bad plan. It involves John Carter. So as the plan is being revealed through a bunch of exposition, John Carter is fighting through this armor to get to Dejah Thoris, which is a really great way to have exposition and not have it hinder the flow of that story, like, say, something like Undiscovered Country. Really like this issue and some of those covers. Out of Body number 4 from Aftershock. This is another book by Pete Milligan. Peter Milligan wrote Human Remains, the pick of the week. This is another really solid book. Out of Body is about this dude who was attacked, put into a coma. Now he's like astral traveling along with like a friend that he's met who's a magician, and he's trying to solve the case of who's after him and why. And it keeps going down these crazy spiraling routes that I love. The artwork's a bit psychedelic at times to help show the appropriate nature and tone of the astral plane and what this dude's going through. But this book has been really fun. It's been interesting to try to piece it together, but it's also got some nice character work done in here where like the character's reflecting on himself, being able to see him through another person's perspective. And he's like, oh, I didn't know I was so much of an asshole. Things like that, you know. Sometimes you don't want to see yourself from the outside. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Did he say it? Yeah. And then we got Beck Star number 5 from Mad Cave Studios from our homie, friend of the show, Joe Corallo. This is the final issue for now because it kind of leaves it open-ended. I loved it. Beck Star has been a great, fun space adventure romp. It's a little bit Indiana Jones, a little bit Firefly. It's got this nice snarky sense to it, but it's also got this core that's about the power of friendship. I mean, it kind of is. It sounds cheesy, but the way that Joe is able to wrap it all up very neatly with a lot of action, but a lot of that emotional punch makes it work so freaking well for me. This has been an astounding series, and I'm not just saying that because I think Joe's a cool person. I really mean that. This was a fantastic book. Beck Star. Trade's coming out soon. If you missed your chance, get in on it. I love it. Also, the artwork is super cool. There's a lot of kinetic, frantic energy to this issue in particular. Big, bold panels. Like sometimes just 2 panels on a page or whatnot, but it helps be really punchy towards that end. It really sets it up for success. And the artwork was absolutely brilliant, and the covers have been cool. So there you go. So that's what I read. That's what I thought. What are you reading? What are you digging? Let us know in the comments down below. And thank you so much for checking out the video. Be sure to join us next week, because next week we're doing a special live edition of the weekly comic book review, because next week is the 5th anniversary of the weekly comic book review. Next week we'll make 5 solid years, every single week, me providing the show where I read a lot of comics and let you know what I thought about them. I don't have any plans on quitting, but I'd like to take a moment, do the show live, and then have a nice just kind of reflection on the last 5 years with you. So thank you so much for everything. Thank you for the support. Thank you for helping us get to 5 years and beyond. Anyway, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and check us out at popculturephilosophers.com for podcast blogs and a whole lot more. I've been Rockin' Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Station. Keep on reading, y'all.